Did you know there's one tissue within your body that has a huge influence over how your joints feel and how your joints function? And it is not the joint itself. What is this tissue and what can you do to help it support your joints better? That's exactly what we're going to be discussing on this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're going to keep our introduction and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are discussing this idea of something within your body that has a huge influence over your joints. I mean, when we think joints, a lot of times our mind goes right to the joint itself, but there is something that not only controls your joints, it supports your joints, it moves your joints, and it protects your joints. And if this is not working or healthy or as optimal as it could be, your joints could be the thing that suffer. We're going to tell you exactly what that is and what you can do to make sure it's working well within your body.
That's right, Charlie. So we work with a lot of people with joint issues here. And I think the number one thing that people say or are told, or it makes sense in our brain when we think about joint issues, is the joint itself, right? Just like you were saying, like, oh, I have an SI. I have SI is usually what people say, which is sacroiliac joint, right? I have that joint. Yes, we all have that joint, and yours seems to be symptomatic. Or I have a shoulder impingement, or I have frozen shoulder. And it really makes the attention in our brain, like the words we use really influence what our brain thinks. And so it brings the attention to the joint. We're thinking, oh, this joint, this bone connecting to another bone type thing, that's the issue. Or my hip joint, my labrum, or, it's definitely a joint issue because I have arthritis. I have a diagnosed issue in a joint. It must be a joint issue. And regardless of what state your joint is in, symptomatic, asymptomatic, feeling great, it's pinchy, it's funky, it's have arthritis, you got bone spurs in your joint, whatever is going on in your joint, there is one thing in your body that you have active control over and you can highly influence that can change how your joints are feeling and how you get to function. And really, this affects the health of the joint. I used to think when I first got into this field, I was like, well, if someone has arthritis, like, why should we do this thing, make their joints feel amazing, but they still have arthritis? Isn't the problem still there? Well, yes, the arthritis might still be there, and the arthritis or other issues are still there. But if you're able to continue with a healthy lifestyle and keep your body healthy and you're able to do the activities that you want and avoid maybe a surgery or something, well, that's really great. So what is this one special tissue that you were talking about, Charlie?
It's your muscle.
What? Your muscles?
Yes, absolutely. Your muscles are the thing that not only are going to keep your joints healthy, but make sure they stay safe. They're going to keep your joints mobile, they are going to keep your joints protected, and they are going to keep your joints functioning the way that they should. Not only that, but as your muscles continue to function better, get stronger, work more optimally, it gives a greater opportunity for the health of your joints to actually improve. So a lot of times we think, okay, well, my joint is the issue, which means my joint must also be the solution. Now, the joint may be where the symptom is, but here's the thing. If you have a joint problem, you more than likely have a muscle problem, all right? I'm not going to say like 100% across the board, but almost 100% across the board. If you have a joint problem, you have a muscle problem because the muscles are the operators of the joint. The muscles are the things that are going to keep the joint safe. The muscles are the things that are going to keep the joints healthy. And so if there is some breakdown happening with the joint, whether it's a symptom breakdown, whether it is a structural breakdown, something is happening with the joint, one of the primary things that needs to be considered is what's going on with your muscles.
That's right. And in life, we always talk about there are things we can control and things we can't control, right? Like we can't control how old you are, but you can control what nutrition you're putting in your body or what you do for your brain and mental health and what you do for your physical health. You can control those, but you can't control your age, right? You can't control your genetics. So one cool thing about your joint issue is that you can control your muscles. One thing I always tell clients is muscles are the coolest things ever because you can change them within 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You can change them within an hour of a workout. they can also change in a negative way, but they're highly manipulatable. Is that a word?
Yeah, well,
manipulatable. You guys know what I'm saying. We're going to use it. Yeah.
Influenceable.
Influenceable. Yeah, you can change your muscles because they are constantly changing tissue. Tissue that doesn't change quickly is your cartilage in your joints. Those don't change quickly. The bones, your bones don't change quickly. If you break a bone, you already know the doctor has said it's going to take 6 whole weeks to repair this thing, right? It's a slow changing tissue. A lot of tissues in your body do change, and the environment that you put your body in really influences how they're going to change, like in a positive way or a negative way. But muscles change so fast. And so if you are able to change your muscles, that's what's going to change how your joints are functioning. Because here's the thing, they are so intertwined. And in fact, Charlie, you said, I'm not going to say 100% of the time there's a muscle issue when there's a joint issue present, but I have yet to have anyone come into at least our office here and have a joint issue, and their muscles are working spectacularly.
So I will support that statement. I'll say in 100% of the joint issues I've seen, there is an associated muscle issue. But I'm open to the idea that that may not be the case at some point in time. But over the course of over 13 years, 100% of the joint issues I've seen have an associated muscle issue with them.
So here's how it kind of works is your muscles are moving around your joints, and if they're getting weaker and weaker and weaker, let's say you don't actively strength train or respect your joints, or we'll break things down later. But if they're slowly getting weaker over time, meaning you're not doing any positive input into your muscles, then over time your joints are going to get less and less supported. Those are the people that wake up one day and you're like, what? I didn't do anything. Why is my knee hurting? Well, you're not doing anything. That's the thing. That's the problem. Muscles need to be strengthened so that they can really support your joints. So if you are in that boat, your joints are probably getting kind of achy because your muscles are slowly breaking down, yet you still wake up every day expecting to use your body, use your muscles, do the things you want to do, but the condition of your body is not keeping up. Scenario 2 is that you've had like an acute injury. You're like, but Julie, I sprained my ankle. It must be an ankle issue because I rolled it off of the sidewalk. I saw it happening. Well, what happens when you have a high force situation in a joint, like abruptly like that, an acute injury, it's like small condensed time. It wasn't overtime. But what happens is then your muscles are like, oh shoot, we gotta contract and support this area. We gotta make sure that we are holding on tight. That's why you lose mobility, you lose function, you start limping, you're protecting that area. So that also is a muscle issue. We can highly use the muscles to help that area heal really quickly by how we're influencing the muscles. Because remember, the muscles are very highly influenceable. We change them all the time in 15 minutes, 30-minute sessions, all the time. So no matter how you got to your joint issue, there is, at least to our knowledge, everything we've seen so far, there is always something going on in the muscle system that can be supporting that area or is helping that area feel pretty bad.
Absolutely. Now, one thing you need to understand about your muscles is all of your muscles cross a joint, meaning your muscles exist where a joint is, okay? If you don't have a joint in an area, then there won't be any muscles. It's the entire point of muscles. And a lot of times we think, muscles are there to burn calories or to, have us look a certain way or whatever. And those are all kind of secondary and tertiary effects of your muscles. But really one of the primary reasons for having muscles, in addition to like locomotion, which would actually be a result of moving your joints, okay? So like moving your joints, supporting your joints, helping your joints be in certain positions, which we'll call posture, allowing you to be upright and allowing you to move and, walk, ambulate through space, okay? So all of these things, those are the reasons why your muscles are there, is they are so tied in with your joints to be able to, again, move your joints. And then as a result of that, also to be able to protect your joints, okay? So when you start to have more and more joint issues, that is a sign that the things that are supposed to be protecting your joints may not be functioning as well as they should be, may not be functioning as well as they once were. And as a result, the joints, the things that are supposed to be being protected, they're starting to take on more stress. They are starting to, accumulate more symptoms. And so that is why we're saying, hey, when you're having an issue that seems to be very specific to the joints, we need to look at what was supposed to be protecting the joints, what was supposed to be keeping the joints safe, what was supposed to be keeping the joints healthy, because more times than not, there's some failure or some dysfunction happening within that system, the system of the muscles, which results in some kind of symptom happening with the joints.
That's right. And when we think about like this connectedness, like what Charlie said, when there's a joint, there's a muscle, and there's no muscles that exist without a joint. There's absolutely none. I mean, the reason there are muscles is to control, protect, move, stop, make them go. Joints, that's what the point is.
If we're getting really specific, we'll say skeletal muscles.
Skeletal muscles. That's true, right? Because the heart doesn't.
There's
go.
smooth muscle
Yeah.
within the lining of your blood vessels and everything like that. We're talking about skeletal muscles.
Skeletal
What
muscles.
most fitness medical professionals think about when they think about muscle.
Yes. Okay. That was a good one. So, and these are muscles that again you can influence. I think it's very hard to change and influence like your intestinal muscles and stuff like that. But yes, we're talking about the muscles. They're called skeletal muscles. They're the ones that move your body. Like when you think about moving, those are your muscles. So now comes the question. So what are we going to do with our muscles so that they're doing a good job at like supporting our joints? Because we know that joint issues are like the number one thing that people complain about when they come in here or when they walk around. It's the number one reason people don't go to the gym or work out or take care of their health physically. It's because their knees hurt or their hips hurt or whatever. And so what can we do about this? But I think first we have to back up to what we are told is the ideal. And the ideal is painted in our heads wrong, okay? So first of all, when we think about muscles, we think loose. We think tight is bad, loose is good. So the goal is loosen. Well, the goal really isn't loosen. The goal is don't feel them, right? Mm-hmm. When you wake up in the morning and you don't feel anything, and you're just like, wow, I just woke up and started walking and I don't feel symptoms. That's what we label as feeling good. If your muscles were literally loose, like I used to listen to this seminar and the guy would say, we all want to be Gumby, don't we? And I was like, in the time I thought, yeah, that makes total sense. We all do want to be Gumby. I'm like, no, if we were all Gumby with loose joint, like loose muscles, we would like fall over when we walk. I mean, talk to anyone that's actually double jointed, like they have loose muscles, or if they have like a...
They're not actually double jointed. We may call it double jointed, but they have
excessive motion.
Excessive motion, yeah.
Right. They hurt themselves all the time because their muscles and joints are too loose, right? So we don't want loose. We actually want precise contraction, but we don't want tight, right? So we need to delete this idea in our head that we need to just loosen our muscles. So we're going to soon teach you how do you strengthen so that everything is working correctly, not just so that they're loose. But then the other thing with joints is that we want joints to be supported. A lot of times when we think about joints, we just want maximum motion. We want the most motion. We want to look like a yogi. We want to be able to kick our leg up and it hits our nose. Like that's what we're taught is like the thing that we want our joints to do. But actually we want our joints to be able to move fully and freely, but not necessarily to like a standard norm. When we try to go for standard norms, that's actually when we get injured because when we're trying to like push our bodies to like what someone else's bodies can do or what the machine tells us we should do or whatever, but actually having full pain-free, symptom-free range of motion in our joints. And the best way to do that is again to strengthen your muscles to be supportive of your joints, not necessarily loosen your muscles. But when you strengthen appropriately, your exercise, your strengthening shouldn't be making you tighter, right? So if you're doing any activities that are making you tighter, then it's going to start slowly working against your joints. So we always recommend you need to edit these just a little bit so that your joints can be as healthy as possible.
Absolutely. So we want our muscles to be strong. We also want them to be functioning well. What do we mean by function well? Well, the role of muscles or the function of muscles is to contract, okay? So we want them to be able to contract or squeeze, and we want them to be able to have a lot of output when they do that, especially relative to the tasks that we're asking them to do, within our daily life, all right? So strong looks different for different people based on, what your daily life is asking of you. But you need to have at least the requisite strength to do the things that you're wanting to do in your life. And if you have a little bit more than that, or a lot of bit more than that, awesome. We also want to make sure that your muscles can initiate that contraction for all your muscles across the board. Because what happens is if certain muscles aren't able to initiate that contraction, you may still get, this output of strength, but it's because other muscles are having to overwork, are having to compensate for the ones that aren't working as well. And in the short term, it can help you do the things you want to do. In the long term, it can become a really big issue. And so that's why we need both. We need the function perspective of making sure that all your muscles can contract well. And then we need the strength or output perspective, so then you can do the things that you want to do with minimal compensation, with minimal kind of stress to your system.
Yeah, and the both can coexist. They can happen together, right?
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you never exercise, you probably have low output, meaning you never practice lifting heavy stuff, right? You never practice the exercise component, but it's very likely that you also have some compensations. But this also goes for people that are like, well, Julie and Charlie, you just said I need to work on my strength. I strength train all the time, and I still have joint issues. Well, you might be having a lot of the function issues, the compensation issues, because exercising, just exercising doesn't necessarily exclude you from having some of the function issues. You're just really good at the output. So anyways, we hope this opens your eyes to be like, hey, if I have a joint issue, there could be some type of underlying muscle issue going on. And in Charlie and I's experience, and experience of a lot of our colleagues, is that there always is a muscle issue going on if you're having a joint issue going
Absolutely. Okay, so how do we go about improving the function of your muscles, improving the strength of your muscles in order to support and protect and keep the health of your joints? Okay, we got 3 things that we need you to keep in mind. The first is making sure that you're doing exercise that builds your body, not just exercise that uses your body. Okay, what's the difference between the two? Exercise that uses your body is what most people do when they exercise. Their body is being used to accomplish something that is outside of their body, meaning they are running to travel the distance, or to take up the next 30 minutes of time, or they are on the cycle bike in order to participate in the class or to rank somewhere on the leaderboard. Okay, so it's all very kind of external focused, external oriented, versus exercise that is building or rebuilding your body. All right, that is very internally focused. So an example would be, hey, you're going to go for a run in order to really try to challenge your heart. You're going to get on the cycle bike in order to really try to challenge your leg muscles. You're going to do your resistance training or strength training, not just to get a certain number of reps, or not just to have the weight go up and down, but to really focus on squeezing your shoulder muscles, on challenging your core muscles, on working your lower body muscles, whatever that is for you. So it's a shift in focus from what's going on outside of your body, and instead creating your exercise, designing it so it's all about your focus on what's going on within your body.
Now, an easy way to remember this is like thinking about working out versus working in, right? You want your exercise to be building the health and function of your body. So often when we exercise, you guys all know the sayings where it's like you just turn your brain off and do it, right? And that is a great way to lead to overuse injuries of your joints. And we're not saying that it's bad to walk and talk with a friend and not think about your body, but if that's all you're doing, it's really important that you start building in time to build your body. And when you weight train, instead of just counting the reps and pushing through and yay, I pushed myself, you're actually thinking about what's happening inside your body, which leads us to our next point of here is how you really work in to your body, is using the exercise for life principles. So our tip number 2 for making sure your muscles stay as functional and strong and healthy for your joints is to always be using the exercise for life principles. There are 4 of them, and if you want to apply them with us, check it out in our membership. There is a free trial period, and all of our exercise, all of our workouts do follow these 4 principles, but let me break them down for you right here, just with the words. So number 1, you want to make sure you're using full pain-free range of motion. A lot of times, again, we go by the picture on the wall or what the instructor's doing, or what we think we should be doing from high school PE class, and we do this giant full range of motion, no pain, no gain. But actually what we want to see is that when you're lifting your weights, when you're doing your strengthening exercises, you're doing full but pain-free, stretch-free, symptom-free range of motion. So big range of motion, but it stays within your boundaries of your body that day during that set. Number 2 is that you want to be mindful of your moving and non-moving parts. This sometimes gets translated into form, which we don't like that word because a lot of times there's one form for every body, instead of saying everybody has a unique form, right? So when you start an exercise, there are parts of your body that are going to move and parts of your body that are going to not move. It's important that your focus is on maintaining moving the moving stuff and not moving the not moving stuff. A lot of people get into a slippery slope of trying to get reps in, trying to rep them out, trying to push through, trying to finish the set or whatever, but then they're compromising their non-moving section, or they're moving less in their moving section you get the point, right? So maintain those parts. Number 3 is going to be move slowly. A lot of people just rep things out, turn off their brain, try to do it for the number, but actually when you move slowly, you're going to be highlighting your muscle more. You're going to know when you try it because you're like, dang, that was a lot harder than moving fast. Yes, so when you move slowly, it highlights the muscle more. It actually makes your muscle work more, which is great because the whole reason you're at the gym doing workouts is to challenge your muscle. So add the challenge. And the last point is going to be focusing on the muscle squeeze. So when you're doing your bicep curls, instead of counting to 10 or listening to your song, you're actually thinking about squeezing your biceps. You're focused on squeezing the muscles that you're trying to squeeze. So you're just tuning in with your brain, trying to connect rather than trying to disengage or disconnect with your body as you exercise.
Absolutely. Those 4 exercise for life principles really are key to making sure that your exercise is building or rebuilding your body and not just using your body. The third step or the third tip that we have is to start doing MAT, muscle activation techniques. Really, this whole system, the whole MAT process is designed to assess your body to figure out where you have muscles that aren't functioning as well as they should, where they don't have that ability to contract, and then to improve upon that, to restore that ability to contract. So then when you go and you exercise, you can actually strengthen them. When you go and do things throughout your life, you can use the muscles in the ways that they are designed to move, all right? MAT, when somebody has a joint issue, can be so impactful, not only at helping to restore the muscle function, but making sure that joint is fully supported, improving the mobility of the joint, and potentially even changing the symptoms of the joint in a really positive manner. We've seen it time and time again. Again, we've been practicing for 13 years now, and this is what we see day in and day out. When somebody has a joint issue, they have an associated muscle issue. We need to get the muscles stronger, but we also need to get the muscles functioning better, and that's where MAT comes in. There's nothing else like it. I haven't seen anything else like it. And across the board, when your muscles function better, your joints become more supported, your joints become better protected, your joints become more mobile, all helping to improve the health and function of your joints.
You know, early in the podcast, Charlie, when we said like, you know, muscles can change like so fast, like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, you know, I was referring to our MAT sessions.
Yeah.
They're the most remarkable because when you go to work out, the biggest thing most people notice change is your mental health. Like, I'm like, I feel clearer, but you're not necessarily stronger. Like, you can never go to a workout and be like, I did 1 set of bicep curls for my life, and now I never have to go because they're stronger, right? But in an MAT session, we commonly see people not be able to lift their arm up, and then 10 minutes later, they're lifting their arm up. I mean, that happened to you last week.
Oh, yeah.
Or, for example, I had a woman come in with a quote-unquote genetic bunion, which is a joint issue. And I'm not saying that everyone in her lineage didn't have bunions. But after we worked on the muscles, she was like, where's my bunion? And the bunion was still there, but it was way less swollen because we just strengthened the muscles around that joint. And now she's like, great, I literally canceled my podiatrist appointment. And it's not because there's not, you know, quality care there, but it's like saying, hey, if we just get the muscle stronger and all the joint issues go away, then sweet. That's awesome. So this is the place where we see those big joint changes. And the cool thing with MAT is that we use it on people that are really not interested in ever exercising. They don't exercise. They are very deconditioned because they don't exercise. And then we also use it on high-level athletes. I mean, people in the NFL do MAT regularly because they know what it means to restore the muscle system. So if you've been strengthening or you have not been strengthening, but you're looking to really get your joints supported in a really nice conservative way, like we're not cutting you open and manipulating joints or smushing your body here or there, we are going to teach you how to strengthen your muscles. And MAT is an amazing and kind of like crazy route because people are like, what is this, voodoo? This works so fast. But it's just a great way to bring muscles back to their normal functioning state because our body regularly, you know, beats us up and wears us down and we overuse things or never use things. And that's how muscles become less functional. And then they start supporting our joints less and less.
Exactly. Okay, so the big takeaway that we want you walking away from this podcast with is if there's a joint issue, there is a muscle issue as well. Again, across the board, 100% of the time, you've seen it for the last 13 years. When there's a joint issue, there's also a muscle issue, okay? The muscles and the joints are so heavily interrelated that actually by improving the strength and the function of the muscles, oftentimes the health, the mobility, and everything that's going on with the joint greatly improves as well. All right, so we want you to shift your mindset away from, oh, well, this is a knee symptom, which means it's a knee issue. There may be a knee symptom. There may also be a knee issue, but there's also highly likely a muscle issue going on as well. And by addressing the muscle issue, the strength and the function of the muscles, it can highly influence what's going on with the knee from a function perspective and from a symptom perspective without having to do anything with the knee structurally. So if you're wanting to try out MAT, muscle activation techniques, and you are in the Chicagoland area, definitely give us a shout, okay? You can find out all of our information on our website, matschaumburg.com. We'll also put a scheduling link in the show notes so you can check it out right from there. If you're wanting help implementing our 4 Exercise for Life principles within your workouts, it's exactly what we teach you to do within the Exercise for Life membership. Right now, for a limited time, you can get a 30-day free trial, $0 to access the entire Exercise for Life membership. All you have to do is go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com and you can get signed up from there. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that has some kind of joint issue going on and is very focused on, because it's a joint symptom, it must be a joint issue / joint solution? Share this episode with them so they can start to understand the role and the influence that their muscles may be having on what's going on with their joints. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review, or whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to us, leave us that 5-star rating and review. If you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.